Chapter 12. I'm going on the record that I still think this is a bad idea, Jane said, flashing Amanda a reproachful look. Duly noted, Amanda said, checking her reflection in the mirror again. The last few days had been a litany of Jade telling her horror stories about fraternity parties. Then Kate had joined in when Amanda had finally remembered to call her and fill her in. But neither Kate nor Jade had spent time with Caleb. Once they did, Amanda was sure their concerns would fade away, just as she was sure that nothing would happen tonight. Caleb was waiting in the dorm lobby when Amanda arrived there. He stood and smiled at her. "You look great. Are you ready?" "Absolutely," Amanda said with a smile, and took his hand. Her smile faltered when they stepped outside the warm, lighted building, though. An uncharacteristic fog had settled on the grounds, and combined with the dusk and full moon, it created an eerie setting. Caleb led the way off campus, stating the meeting house was just across University. As they walked the few short blocks to the house, Amanda found herself jumping at shadows and battling a foreboding feeling. What if Jade had been right? What if someone spiked her drink? That happened occasionally, right? She wished she had thought to bring her own water bottle. No, that was silly. Why would anyone want to spike her drink? She was just being paranoid. A tiny voice insisted it wasn't too late to turn back, but Amanda tightened her grip on Caleb's hand and ignored it. The meeting house was a single-story brick house with the Beta Zeta Psi banner across the front. Other than the banner and the music pouring out of it, it didn't look much different from the surrounding houses. As the door opened, though, Amanda was surprised by how much room there was. "We had it remodeled so we'd have a bigger dance floor," Caleb said, answering her unasked question. "So now there's just a small kitchen and the open space here, and then the bedrooms and the bathroom are back that way." The room already pulsed with people, and the music was even louder inside. Flinching, Amanda resisted the urge to cover her ears. The electronic beat seemed to reverberate down her spine, causing her teeth to throb in their sockets. Caleb pulled Amanda to the middle of the floor, and they joined in the dancing, or tried to anyway. There were so many bodies that they were basically just jostled from one squished position to another on the laminate wood floor. Sweat poured down Amanda's neck and spine, and she glanced around for a way to cool off as she wiped a bead cascading down her forehead. The front door seemed an ocean away, and they weren't near any windows. But the refreshment table stood out like an oasis just a few feet away. Surely a drink could wet her parched throat, and then maybe she could convince Caleb to leave. While it had been fun seeing what a frat party was like, Amanda wasn't enjoying herself nearly as much as she had thought she would. Amanda tugged on Caleb's arm and pointed at the table, motioning that she'd like a drink. Smiling, he pulled her close and pushed through the crowd. "Sorry, we don't have water, but would you like some punch?" he asked, when they reached the table. Amanda nodded, assuming beer, which she wasn't drinking, was the only other choice. As Caleb picked up a paper cup and filled it with red liquid from the smaller keg, Amanda turned to scan the crowd. She blinked as she caught sight of a familiar face. Or at least she thought it was a familiar face. What would Jared be doing here? She was about to move that direction when Caleb tapped her arm and handed over the cup. Amanda took the cup before turning her attention back to the crowd, but the familiar face was gone. With a sigh, she returned her attention to Caleb, who held a bottle of beer in his hand. "Aren't you going to have the punch?" Amanda asked. He shook his head. "No, the sugar always gets me. Don't worry, I'll just have one." Caleb knew Amanda was not a fan of drinking. Nodding, she took a large sip of the red liquid and nearly coughed it back up. There was indeed a lot of sugar in the punch. Wow, you weren't kidding. Caleb smiled and nodded. Another small sip made the drink bearable, and she finished most of it that way.
Let's go back there where we can talk a little easier,
Caleb shouted, pointing toward the back. The foreboding feeling triggered again in her mind, but Amanda rationalized it away once more. Surely they could go talk for a minute and be fine. There were too many people for him to try anything here. Nodding, she followed Caleb toward the back. Away from the music, it did get a little quieter. The pounding in her ears lessened to a dull ache. "Whew, is the music always so loud?" she asked. As the words left her mouth, the room began tilting and going fuzzy around the edges. Swaying, she reached for the wall to steady her feet.
"Are you okay?"
Caleb asked, holding out a hand. "I don't know. I feel kind of weird." The room lurched again, and she fell forward into Caleb.
"Here, let's find a room and we'll lay you down for a bit."
Caleb pulled her close to his chest. Alarm bells clanged like a 5-alarm fire in Amanda's head, and she tried to protest, but her mouth felt dry and heavy. She could only weakly shake her head back and forth. He wrapped an arm around her and began walking toward one of the rooms. Amanda's feet refused to move, feeling like they were encased in cement. What was wrong with her? Her arms, too, hung limply at her side. Hoisting her a little higher on his hip, Caleb drug her the rest of the way to her room. He opened the door, pulled her inside, and closed the door. Amanda's mind tried to grapple with what was happening. The lock of the door clicked, and fear flashed through her. Picking her up, Caleb carried Amanda to the king bed covered in a blue bedspread and hoisted her on it. He adjusted the pillow beneath her head and then sprawled beside her.
"There, that's better, right?"
he said, and caressed her hair. But his voice was off. It was cold, soulless. Amanda's eyes, the only body part still working, flicked to his. Nothing else was responding to her commands, though her brain seemed to be working perfectly. And she could feel the touch of his hand and the cotton beneath her. She should have listened to Jade. She should have listened to her gut. Fear crawled in as the realization sank in that she couldn't escape. Caleb's hand trailed down the side of Amanda's face, and he leaned in. His blue eyes were ice, chilling her to the core. His mouth touched her ear, and his words stopped her heart.
"Don't worry, you won't remember this tomorrow, and what you do remember, you'll think was a hallucination. You know you want this. I just gave you a little something to help you relax."
His lips then moved from her ear to her mouth as if this were a normal makeout session. The urge to bite his lip and knee him in the groin flared inside Amanda, but no matter how hard she tried, nothing moved. She flicked her eyes back and forth, trying to convey that this was not okay. This was not what she wanted. But his lips just curled in a sinister smile. Lowering his face again, his lips meandered down her neck. The word no flashed in her head, but it didn't escape her lips. Her finger twitched as she tried to push him away, but a twitch was all Amanda could manage.
"Let's see what you've been keeping from me, shall we?"
He took one side of her shirt in his mouth and deftly flicked the button open with his tongue.
"Nope, I need a little more."
Another button opened, and a chill hit Amanda's chest.
"That's more like it,"
he said, tracing the white lace of her bra. He finished separating the buttons and flung her shirt open. A solitary tear escaped her eyes. His hands roamed her chest, followed quickly by his mouth, first on one side and then the other. Then his tongue traced a pattern down the middle of her stomach.
"Now, isn't this more fun?"
He looked up at Amanda with those ice blue eyes and smiled, before undoing the button on her jeans. Smiled, as if this was a game to him that she had agreed to play. He pulled the zipper down, and she squeezed her eyes shut against the attack that was about to happen. Then the glorious pounding started.
"Amanda, are you in there?"
Jared's voice ignited a small kernel of hope inside Amanda, and her eyes popped open. Caleb glanced at the door and cursed, but continued his crusade. Perhaps he believed the door would hold even against Jared's pounding. A large boom shook the door, but it held firm. Then another smaller series of poundings. The noise hit a nerve in Caleb.
"I knew I should have had your friend taken care of."
Cursing again, he pushed off Amanda and began tearing around the room. Was he looking for something? The door rattled again. He ran his hands through his blonde hair, uttered a final string of curse words, and opened the window. A glorious thud let her know he had landed on the ground. Fear and joy intermingled in her brain, and another tear worked its way down her cheek. The door splintered open, and Jared rushed in. Emily was close behind him. What were they doing here? Emily covered Amanda with the comforter, and gratitude flowed through her body. Then Jared picked her up, and Amanda let the encroaching darkness take over. Amanda opened her eyes and looked around the hospital room. For just a second, she didn't remember why she was there. And then the memories came flooding back. Her fingers gripped the white sheet as the images overwhelmed her, pressing down like a 10-pound brick. The unusual taste of the drink and the dizziness that had come soon after. Leaning on Caleb for support as he took her into a room. The door opening and the large bed filling her vision. Amanda shut her eyes against the invading memory, willing it to disappear, but it did no good. The image lit up, a movie screen in her mind. Caleb laying her down on the bed, his lips on her chest, where no man's lips had been before. The feelings of fear and despair as she realized what he was doing. A sob escaped Amanda's lips, and she curled into a ball. How could she have been so dumb? How had she let her guard down so much? She felt dirty and violated, and she wondered if she'd ever be okay again.